everyone, thank you so much for joining me. It's nice to meet you if I haven't already met you. This video brings us here into the drive-in. This is going to be a way to escape the zoo that's over there right across from me in the house, four-legged and two-legged alike. This way we can kind of just relax in a little bit of isolation and enjoy a triple feature, which is what we're going to be doing today. Movies that I did not watch consecutively, but I will talk about consecutively. So let's not waste any more time. The very first one that we're going to be talking about today is Escape from Pretoria. This is a more recent release, released in March of this year, 2020, and it is literally about the greatest prison escape of all time. So when you've got big boasts like that, of course I'm going to want to check it out. The top billing that we've got is Daniel Radcliffe and Daniel Webber. Daniel Radcliffe doesn't really need any introduction as to who he is. Daniel Webber was a name that I was not familiar with. Doing a little bit of digging, I know more recently he was portraying Vince Neil in the Motley Crue biopic The Dirt, and he portrayed Lee Harvey Oswald in, I believe it was a Hulu original, 11/22/63, based off the Stephen King novel of the same name, which is kind of interesting, that he was portraying a character in a Stephen King adaptation, and Daniel Radcliffe portrayed a character in Horns, which was by Joe Hill, Stephen King's son. So that's really kind of interesting. So anyways, this particular film takes place during 1979, I believe is what we're looking at, in South Africa during apartheid. Daniel Radcliffe plays Tim Jenkin, who actually wrote the book that this is based off of. Daniel Webber plays Stephen Lee, Tim Jenkin's friend and accomplice. Now, one of the big things about this is that since we have a true story based off a book by the individual who this is about, especially with the title and the tagline that we have here, they're pretty much kind of giving away their own ending, so to speak. So we know that this is a prison escape. So when you've kind of put that out there, now the movie is going to have to go off of the merits of what it is portraying, what it is boasting of the greatest prison escape of all time. And we're getting something that is, it's really cool. So essentially, these are two individuals who they're essentially bombs. They're like confetti bombs that display a bunch of pamphlets from banned organizations such as the ANC. And obviously this is to promote racial equality and to denounce apartheid and segregation. Obviously, in South Africa, this is not going to fly, especially during this time, because I believe apartheid wasn't even disbanded until 1994, around that time. Tim Jenkin is sentenced to 12 years. Stephen Lee is sentenced to 10 years. And the movie then follows of their escape. Now, one of the biggest things that you're going to deal with in this movie is a lack of character development. That's going to be one of the biggest critiques that you're going to see across the board. And it's true. We know from the very beginning that the aim is to escape, even though when they meet a individual by the name of Dennis Goldberg, who is portrayed by Ian Hart. Interestingly enough, he played Professor Quirrell in Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone, so it's also kind of cool sharing screen time with Daniel Radcliffe, yes, yet again, many, many years later. When they meet him, he is much on the same wavelength of them, especially with ties to the exact same organizations. However, he is more so in the mindset of keeping your head down, doing your time, and not becoming a prisoner in your own mind. Essentially, don't do something stupid that is going to jeopardize you and everything it is that you're fighting for. But these two, our main characters, have a completely different motive that they've announced from the very beginning. But that's really it. We know from the beginning that they're going to be setting out to escape, and then what we're getting is just the escape. For instance, Stephen Lee, Daniel Webber's character, they honestly could have basically just set up a cardboard standee, or maybe just blank cardboard, drew a face on it and put it next to Daniel Radcliffe, because unfortunately he's not given anything whatsoever. And that is a bit of a shame, because we're focusing on Daniel Radcliffe, who has some serious acting chops. However, though, they're giving him a role that they're not asking him or giving him anything in which he can give back to, which is a bit of a strange role since we've really seen what he's capable of doing. But I digress. Anyways, they're setting out to escape, and it takes place over a number of years where the aim of the game is to create keys out of discarded pieces of wood, scraps left over from woodworking projects, and etc. Tim Jenkins would see a ring of keys, maybe hone in on a key that is being used, jot it down from memory, and then craft it. And then a lot of it goes into taking the keys and trial, error to get it to work. So that's basically the whole nutshell of the movie. They do have another individual who plays, who is the third escapee. He's actually a fictionalized character. He's an amalgamation of a bunch of different characters, because there was actually a lot more individuals that played a part in this escape. Dennis Goldberg, the actual Dennis Goldberg, actually played a much larger role than what he's given in the screen. One of the instances that they're really kind of downplaying everybody to just kind of focus on the escape. But we do have Leonard, who is a French prisoner, portrayed by Mark Leonard Winter, and he just wants to escape. We have a little bit of motivation with his son, wanting to see his son. But apart from just being a prisoner that wants to escape, that's all that he has. Apart from, these two individuals that were jailed for reasons that they believe to be completely immoral, this guy, Leonard, just simply wants to escape. So once he hears that these guys have a plan, he's on it. And that's it. That's the movie. It doesn't aim to be anything other than what it is, which is one reason that I do actually generally enjoy this film, because it's not aiming out to be anything more than what it is. Yes, we do have one-dimensional, sometimes even half-dimensional characters, but it's not setting out to be anything other than a prison break movie. And it's a really cool prison break. It really is. Even though we know they're going to escape, it's clear that it's going to work. There are some incredibly tense scenes, incredibly gripping scenes, especially with this trial and error. One of the main prison guards, whose name escapes me, he does seem to be kind of just plucked right out of Shawshank, because it's very Shawshanky in a lot of ways. Again, one of the ways that they're trying to drum up a little bit of drama and tension, but like I said, the drama and tension does exist, even though we know exactly what's going to play out, which to me is the mark of a fairly well done film, because even though we know what's going to happen, it's still gripping, it's still tense, and it's amazing watching what he was able to do with creating all of these keys. It's an absolutely amazing thing to watch. It was an amazing feat that he was able to accomplish. At the end of the day, could this have been a film that maybe would have just benefited more from a documentary to kind of see everything that played out, as opposed to just watching characters that they didn't even fully flesh out portray a prison break? Possibly. But it is very cool to still watch it. I definitely do agree that this would be one that you would, I stand firm to say that this is a good movie. This is one that I really enjoyed, and I think that you would benefit from watching as well. Don't pass this one up. Catch it somehow. I think you will really enjoy it. The next one that we are going to talk about in this triple feature comes from Kino Lorber Studio Classics. I grabbed this during the While Supplies Last sale. I dipped twice. I dipped and I dipped again because it was so good. And I thought about doing a quick video showing everything that I got, but because of Kino Lorber Studio Classics, tongue-tied, I want to try to watch those as quickly as possible because I really do enjoy the stuff that they put out, and I trust the stuff that they put out. So I'm going to try to talk about those pretty quickly, so I figured it was probably best to just do it in this format, and this one is More Dead Than Alive. This is a 1969 revenge-style western starring Clint Walker, Cheyenne Bodie. Interesting fact too. His last film role was the voice of Nick Nitro from Small Soldiers. Remember Small Soldiers? I think he was that sort of pill-headed commando elite. Always had the cigar in his mouth. I know he had the death scene in it. Because Cheyenne Bodie, number 1 in the Dirty Dozen, Death by Hanging. I'm pretty sure that was him as well, unless I'm completely mistaken. But another big cast member in this, the main reason that I picked it up, is Vincent Price. We do also have Anne Francis. Honey West is in this as well. Anyway, so this is a revenge I'm sorry, not necessarily a revenge story. I'm sorry, I misspoke. This is more of a man with a past who's trying to leave it behind, but the past is catching up with him. And yes, even prior to this movie, we have seen this done tons and tons of times before. It's not a new story. Even in 1969, there were no new stories. Sorry, it is warm in here. There's no new stories even there, but it depends on the way that this is told. And I believe the way that this is told is actually very, very good. Sorry, I had to crank up the AC a little bit. Even up at the drive-in, it gets really, really warm sometimes down here in the south in the drive-in. Anyways, so Clint Walker, this huge giant tree trunk of a man, plays Kane, Killer Kane, a notorious gunman who killed 12 people and sentenced to 18 years in prison. Each of the individuals that he killed was immortalized by a mark that was on the handle of his Colt. So he now exits prison as a rehabilitated man, wanting to start a new life. However, though, his past is coming back to haunt him. Vincent Price is playing Mark Ruffalo, a barker with a traveling sideshow type of deal. And on the wagon that he has a bunch of curiosities, and one of those is Killer Kane's Colt. He has a sharpshooter by the name of Billy, who's played by Paul Hampton. And obviously, when he meets Kane, he would want nothing more than to capitalize on having Killer Kane in his sideshow. And then, so obviously, we're dealing with Clint Walker, or Kane, trying to make a living away from who he used to be when he meets Anne Francis' character, Monica, I believe was her name, who gives him a very big piece of advice, which is to sort of keep your head down, but don't tell anybody your name. Start a new life. And he finds out pretty quickly not a lot of people are very keen on hiring ex-cons, and no matter what he tries, the past is going to catch back up with him. So perhaps the best course of action is people are capitalizing off of who he was, so why shouldn't he do any different? And so I do really kind of enjoy that. And it's not a slow burn, but it is more of a character-driven movie. Now, granted, there are some very intense scenes, some very brutal scenes of violence, but it is more of a character-driven piece. For instance, the very beginning is a prison break, and the very same prison that Kane was in, and people are escaping left and right. One of the people that doesn't is Kane, which is a very good glimpse into who he is, or who he is trying to become, when he has all the opportunity, but he doesn't, because he does not escape on those terms. He does not want to leave on those terms because of who he is trying to reform himself to be. Now, the cast is fantastic. The restoration by Kino Lorber is flawless. It's consistent. It's clear. It's great. Clint Walker does a very good job as well, which is pretty much par for the course. But the main reason was Vincent Price that you're going to pick this up. And he delivers a delightfully hammed up performance. Everything you would expect from Vincent Price in a Western you're going to get. It's absolutely fantastic. One of the biggest complaints that I have with the film is the music. Because the music, it's not bad. It's just not right. It's wrong. And there's a key scene, a very focal scene, and the music does not fit it whatsoever. I don't know what they were thinking. It kind of takes you out from it a little bit. Even in the very beginning in the prison break, we have the longest single note melody on a harmonica that goes far away from foreboding and just becomes grueling that we're having to sit through it. But with that being said, we've seen it before, but I don't think you've quite seen it this way. It is a very, very interesting movie, especially with the Billy, the star sharpshooter, what he is aiding to Kane's role, because he's a very disturbed individual with these delusions of grandeur. Oddly enough, Paul Hampton looks like he's like 35, but apparently he's supposed to be under 21. But just take that for what it is, because the whole time until there's a scene where they're not allowing minors to drink, I'm sitting here thinking that this guy was knocking on the door of middle age, but no, I was wrong. So, but he's got a baby face, so you can take that for what it is. Now, I'm not going to spoil anything with the ending. The ending I find to be a very realistic ending. A lot of people do not share that opinion with me, but if you have seen it, maybe drop a line in the comments as to what you felt, because to me, it is a very realistic ending. Perhaps rushed, maybe a little bit short, but In my opinion, it sums up exactly what the movie is about. On here, we do have an interview with Clint Walker. It's really the only special feature that we're getting off here. They have the original trailer as well, but not really much to speak for. Sort of a bare bones release, but I would definitely not sleep on this one. I know it is, I believe it is actually still available in the while supplies last sale, so I would definitely pick this up. You will not be disappointed. All right, and the last film that we're going to close off this triple feature with was a Dollar Tree pickup for me in the last sale haul, not the current sale that's going on, and that would be Sushi Girl. This is the one spoiler. This is the one that I liked the least out of all of them, but I would still recommend picking it up for $1. The main cast that we're getting here is Tony Todd and Mark Hamill. Originally when I picked this up with the Dollar Tree blind buy, I'm definitely, a lot of times I will grab things if it looks interesting off of the cover. This is when I will judge a book by its cover. Looking at this, honestly, I was expecting more of a horror-driven piece because I didn't even read this, because that's kind of the fun of it to me. I'm seeing fire, I'm seeing Tony Todd and Mark Hamill looking deliciously creepy, so to me, I'm thinking horror. It's not at all. This is definitely more of a action revenge film. So you've got 6 individuals part of a robbery ring. They have one particular heist which does end up going south as the film progresses. You learn a little bit more about the details. One of the individuals is Fish, who is portrayed by Noah Hathaway, a Trejo from Neverending Story over the many years ago. And he is sentenced to 6 years in jail. Not saying anything about the robbery, not saying anything about the other men involved. He gets released, and the first thing that he does when he walks out is that he sees Tony Todd, Duke, the mastermind behind everything, the ringleader, sees his driver who brings him to this meeting that they're all having 6 years later to discuss the main thing that went wrong. The loot, the diamonds that they were out to steal, they're missing. When everything went south, the diamonds were never recovered. So they want to find out what happened to them. And they're having a dinner, which is laid out over, it's very strange, but it works as a display, I suppose, of power and wealth. They're having a meal of sushi that is spread out over the body of a naked woman who's portrayed by Courtney Palm, the Sushi Girl. She is trained not to react, to basically be catatonic and not say anything no matter if things escalate. That's what she is trained to do. And as they travel further down the body, the pieces become more exotic, with fugu, poisonous blowfish, being at basically the last course, without being a little bit too graphic. Now, basically, so that's also kind of supposed to be more of an allegory for the way things are going to progress, because they want Fish to tell them what happened. And so we obviously do have, okay, one of the things it says on here, it says it has enough bloodshed in the film to make even Tarantino blush. So there's 2 things with that. One, there is some bloodshed. There are some scenes that are going to stick with you, some torture-related scenes, especially the one where you can see Mark Hamill's character of Crow being depicted at right there. That particular scene is one, and the chopsticks is one that's going to kind of stick with you. It's not like it's not one of those torture-driven movies. I can't really like those Hostel films, that they're not really for me. This one has a little bit more going with it as well. But there are some scenes that are going to stick with you, but it's the Tarantino part, because the main thing that makes it difficult to kind of get into this movie is because the whole time you're watching, you're trying to focus on the movie, but you can't help but think, man, these guys really like Reservoir Dogs, and they really liked the sets in Kill Bill. That's really, I mean, you can't help but think that, and it really does kind of take you away from the movie. I mean, Tony Todd as Duke, as the ringleader, is Tony Todd. He's not doing anything more or less than what we would kind of expect. Mark Hamill is doing what he does best. He's doing a character. It's a very flamboyant, over-the-top character, but it's fun, it's enjoyable, it is very hammy, and it's enjoyable. I'll take anything to see Mark Hamill. We have Andy McKenzie. Andy McKenzie is playing Max. He's kind of the heavy. He's just a brute. Which definitely leads to some good scenes with him. And James Duvall is playing, I cannot remember, is it Francis? Francis is his name. He's kind of the guy that now, after all this time, he's the cold feet kind of individual. There's not a whole lot to this, I definitely think it is more aesthetic, which is more of kind of plucked aesthetic, which I guess it's fair that Tarantino is plucked aesthetic as well, and actually plucked story. But that's most of what the film has going for it, which is already derivative. One thing, if you're watching this movie, especially when you're watching scenes, you're thinking, man, this could really benefit from a Danny Trejo cameo. And there's a Danny Trejo cameo. He comes and he swoops into the film very briefly to make all of your dreams come true. My biggest thing with the movie is that based on the title, the glare, the title is already, and when you've got this woman who is basically being a plate, that's the biggest Chekhov's gun that they could possibly do. They're telling you everything right there. So now, as you've told us, essentially, you're going to have to build towards it. And it's not a very satisfying conclusion. There's a little bit of, I mean, things connect, but not completely. It's not as satisfying because there's a little bit of like, wait, what? There's a little bit of that going on where you kind of have to connect the dots yourself, which is fine, but it doesn't overall end up being as satisfying as it could be. But overall, I mean, you are going to see some really memorable scenes in here. You do have a great Mark Hamill performance. So I think this is not one that I would definitely go out and spend any more than $1 for. If you happen to find it at your Dollar Tree, grab it. I would say grab it because it's not a long movie. We're talking, what, 90 minutes, 98 minutes? You're going to have a good enough time. There are some things you will remember, and for $1 to have some pieces that you'll remember, I think it's definitely worth it to check out in some format. So again, that is Sushi Girl. All right, guys, so we're going to go ahead and get out of the drive-in. It's ridiculously hot up in here. So thank you so much for enjoying today's triple feature with me. I hope you enjoyed it at the very least. If you like what I'm doing, like this video, subscribe, leave a comment. I mean, that way I can kind of make sure that I'm going in the right direction with this. I think hopefully we got something good going on right over here. So I'm going to get out of this sweltering drive-in. I'm going to peel out and I guess just go home. That's what we're doing. Go home and maybe watch something else. So I'll catch you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great rest of your day.